So at this point, we have lived in a couple of small spaces. We're in one right now, which is our 3x3 bedroom. So we feel that we are ready to tell you what are the benefits or the perks of living in a small space. So let's start, shall we? Why not? What are you here for otherwise? So what was the most beneficial thing you have found out, that a tiny space gives?
Sitting on your butt and being able to reach everything in arm's reach.
That is the most important thing.
We've all had that time where the thing that we want is 10 steps away from us, and we're sitting down, we're really comfy, and we do not want to get up, even though you may be able to see it. It's across the other side of the room.
Yes,
in a tiny space, everything, you can just grab it.
Everything is within an arm's stretch or a row's reach. So yes, that is a very valid point. Thank you.
You sound so pleased with me. What about you? If you were to give one piece of advice for someone saying, what's beneficial about living in a small space?
What...
The microphone.
What I really enjoy about a small space is how much you can customize it. Literally, because tiny spaces, tiny homes cost considerably less to build. Sometimes you have quite a bit of spare cash to basically incorporate those really cool little quirks. I don't know, a TV that raises from the ground or something like that, whatever. But basically those little cool things that you may want to add in your big home, but basically your bills are too high and you don't have spare money to do that.
Plus you don't really have a need to do some of the things. Like a TV rising out of a cabinet, why would you need that in a big space? Because you just put the TV on the cabinet. TV. You just put the TV on the cabinet. You would just put the stereos on top rather than build them into something.
So really the whole concept of being able to tailor your whole house to what you want and need. Exactly. I mean, if you like cooking a lot, then you can obviously prioritize the kitchen in your tiny home, and that would be the space that you really enjoy. But then if you like to have a bigger wardrobe or whatever, it's your choice, literally. And usually you would have the funds to do that. Because it's such a small space. And small spaces also allows so much more to be practical, multifunctional, and actually very, very useful. Since you have a smaller space to still fit everything that you want and need into it, you kind of have to be creative and come up with ideas that probably wouldn't be in a shop. For example, you have so many little nooks and crannies and spaces that you can fit when you start actually thinking about it. I could fit a triangle-shaped cupboard to put my socks in. I don't know. It's all about using things for what they can be used, not only what they have been designed to be used for. Exactly. If you want to use a shelf as a table or a drawing desk, then go ahead. Just because it's marketed as a shelf or whatever doesn't mean you have to use it as that. Yeah, just, drill it lower into the wall. Another great thing about a small space is that it cleans easier and a lot quicker. Like, small spaces, they can get cluttered and can get dirty pretty fast. So it actually pushes you to keep on top of things and actually keep things relatively tidy. Like, you can't have things cluttering up all your desks or your floor space, because then you would literally not be able to move. So actually, taking all this into account, it ends up there being less stuff in a tiny space because you have to keep everything neat and tidy. So there's less stuff to tidy and you end up with less stuff out as well. And that's the thing, actually. Tiny living encourages simple living as well, because choosing this lifestyle can lead and require a bit more of a minimalistic thinking. It allows you to strip away the stereotypes and the conventions that have been nailed upon you by society. By choosing to live in a tiny space, you really need to knuckle down on what you really want and what you really need to really have a fulfilled life. And until you try it, you can't imagine how much we personally learned, about our limits. And, that goes across the board with everybody who has tried, to minimize their life in such a way. Even if you don't, if you realize that tiny living is not for you in the long run, that's fine. You can still take take away so much from it. It builds a huge, very strong base about your own personal growth. So from that respect, I can't really recommend tiny living enough.
And also, living in close proximity with your friends, your family, your partner, whoever it is, it really helps you get over issues quicker. And also, I think it really does improve your mental health and mental well-being as well.
Yeah, it really allows for teamwork and support. You have a very, very, very good support network. There's a lot of things to do in a small space, and when you're more than one person, then you really need coordination and things like that. Now, this is kind of a given, and we have mentioned this briefly before, but living in a small home is much cheaper. From every angle, it's cheaper to build, maintain, and repair. You have to use less materials, less electricity, you have to heat your home less because it's smaller, so you don't need much.
Now, the average tiny house costs anywhere from like £5,000 to £50,000, depending upon, of course, what size it is and what you put in it and how much you actually spend on it.
Yeah, it's actually also what type you choose, because there's many different types of tiny dwellings.
Exactly. But on average, I would say like £10,000 to £15,000 is probably a decent ballpark on what most people could or would spend on a tiny house, like a basis of it.
Yeah,
and then you build from there.
And this that sort of sum will get you, just the basis of what you need, and maybe one or two luxuries, just for the fun of it.
Imagine trying to actually buy an actual, relatively normal size house for £10,000 to £15,000. Sometimes you can't even get a mortgage.
Yeah,
by putting down £10,000 to £15,000.
That's a small deposit nowadays.
Yeah, but pay that money and build your own dwelling, whether it be a tiny permanent house, one on wheels, a boat, literally anything.
A yurt.
A yurt. You're obsessed with yurts.
I'm not obsessed. They're cool. I recently found them out. They're very versatile. And a personal favorite of mine is that tiny dwellings usually allow people to connect with nature a lot more. Usually a tiny home is highly portable. It could be even on wheels, on a trailer or a van or whatever. And they very often end up surrounded by nature, because actually a lot of tiny house dwellers want to be off-grid as well. That's really a huge bonus for me personally.
Yeah, and I also love how not only do you get to connect with nature, but you also lower your environmental footprint. First of all, because your space is smaller, like we've already said, you use less materials and less energy to heat it and so on and so forth. You also are more likely to produce less waste inside, and also you're more likely to not buy as much clutter and stuff, which means it lowers the demand for that stuff, so less is made, and the cycle just repeats, and it's actually a really nice way of just lowering it without really feeling like you are.
Yeah, and it's just the whole feeling that you're working with nature in a renewable way, instead of just flattening it, essentially. So.
Yeah, and with renewables even, you try and get a renewable system like solar panels, for example. For a regular house, it costs £4,000, £5,000, £6,000. But in a tiny house, you can get under £1,000 worth of solar panels, stick them on a roof, and that can power your entire house forever.
Yeah, with kitchen appliances, laptops, lighting, and anything else that uses electricity in a home. And actually, the whole working with nature aspect, you don't have to have a portable house to do so. You can obviously build your tiny house on permanent foundations, but then this can allow space to have a bigger garden, and then you can grow food, and the solar panel thing will still a small space. You still need less solar panels for that. If you wish to know more about tiny living, and you wish to know if tiny living is for you, then you can pick up your free copy of our new ebook, Is Tiny Living for You? So click the link down in the description below to get your free copy. We're so excited about our upcoming tiny living project, as we're all about discovering and challenging alternative lifestyles, and this is definitely a challenge for us, so subscribe to keep up to date with that.
And we'll be doing a video in 2 weeks' time on the disadvantages of living in a small space, so we'll post that on all the social media, so follow us there, subscribe, and we'll catch you later this week.